you don't get affected by it. These are certainly there. Your desire for the truth, I can see it's so loud and clear. The part that I'm finding a little hard to reconcile is your creative senses and Gandhiji, because Gandhiji, we never thought of him as a creative being, He must have been. All
Gandhiji,
the ideation he had was phenomenal.
Gandhiji was not just creative, he was an innovator and he had creativity in every pore of his body. If you look at his political understanding of a country which was so huge and wasn't connected in any way at that point of time, to be able to in any way get an essence of it, look at the very simple task of the Dandi March.
Yeah.
You have to be creative to think that you can set out to do this small thing like break the salt law, the smallest aspect, and perhaps hope that you'll be able to engender an entire nation. Forget the nation, the world behind you. So if you're not creative, I mean, what is creativity finally, Sunil? As you and I know, even in business, it's really about having an out of the box kind of thinking and having a sense of being able to, in one sense, adapt, but in one sense, think ahead. So you're not thinking about today. If any of us were thinking about today and only behaving like the stock exchange of today is going to be the decider, then you're not looking at creating anything. I remember, I'll give you a small example. About 15 or 16 years ago, maybe it was in 2001 or 2, Mohit and I, my colleague and I, my partner and I, we said, because our business used to be really also involving a lot of cash. And we decided that we wouldn't at all deal with cash and we would keep all our account books as squeaky clean as possible. Fast forward to the time when investors came knocking at our door. One of the reasons they came knocking on our door was we were the only company of its kind in this space that didn't deal with cash and had everything on their books. So, simple thing. Why did we decide to do this? Partly because we were very clear that, because I wear a Salam Balak Trust hat, it's a trust that, as you know, I set up at the same time as I set up Teamwork Arts. I said, I cannot be preaching to my colleagues at Salam Balak Trust and the kids there one kind of truth while doing something completely different in my own work.
Beautiful.
It can't be two different things. You have to have the same philosophies, irrespective of how difficult it is. So in recent times, when people have said, you are very critical of the way the country is run, etc. And don't you think you should moderate yourself, etc. I said, but I have to say what I have to say. This is not. It's not just my country, Sunil. I think it's your and my responsibility.
Correct. That's why it's our.
Yeah, it's our responsibility. Unlike what recently an election commissioner said that there was a toolkit to disrupt. I think the thing is that when you're very clear about what a truth is or should be or could be or whatever, then you need to have the conviction to say that, well, it's my responsibility to put it out. And if it's my responsibility to put it out, then whatever comes with putting it out, that too, I must be very cognizant of, whatever comes with it, criticism or you're being cut out of stuff, etc. But so be it. We have to do what we have to do.
True.
Everybody, let's get on with it. Whoever has to do whatever, do it.
There's another aspect that I see, that you stand for something and you will stand for it no matter what. That's a very, very telling tale of to my mind, of a leader who is truly a good leader. And I know you don't like being seen as that, but
yeah, well, stand for it. I mean, more and more, I think, as I keep telling my colleagues, and I said this when we got invested in 10 years ago, I said, your roles have changed now. Now your role is to zoom out. Now your role is to create other use. Your role is to see how best to navigate a particular path. So it's finally, I don't see it as particularly that it's my again, it's not about my way or my truth. I'm like, can everybody discover their truth? Can I help steer them towards that truth? Can I help steer them to imbibe a philosophy? And the amazing thing I think about all our colleagues at Teamwork and everybody we're connected with, we roughly carry the same philosophy. We may believe differently in terms of political ideology, but the philosophy stays the same about, being empathetic, seeing how you can help.
Being caring.
Yeah.
So this, the work that you do in both in Salam Balak Trust and in Teamworks, it's sorry, I'm going to back up a bit. So in the work that we do in leadership, we found that there are certain characteristics that a great leader has. One of them is something called being very open to possibilities. Now that sounds very normal to you probably, but to the person on the street, he say, "यार वो तो नहीं होगा, यार ये नहीं होता है, don't be silly, यार, that's too." But like Gandhi, again, you seem to have this knack of nothing seems to be out of the realm for you to explore. Would that be correct to say? And did that come naturally, or did you have to push yourself? No, let me break this boundary and try something. How was it for you?
One of the things, Sunil, is maybe because as a person, I've always been positive. Whether I've had a stroke or whether I've had a breakdown or whatever, I've been able to come out of it with a much better understanding of where I was. To me, no is not an option, except when it comes to a particular kind of,
Philosophy or values.
philosophy or value, etc. And I tell my colleagues a lot, we have a couple of colleagues who start by saying, no, this is not possible. So I have to start the meeting by saying, no is, you cannot bring no into this room. Anything that you say, you should have to say, let's explore that, at least explore. You may come back at the end of the day and say that's not possible given A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but at least explore. When we were in our most difficult phase, Sunil, which was in 1995, 96, by which time we were really like a factory because we were producing 14 or 15 weekly or daily soap operas, game shows, food shows, etc. for television. Two of my senior colleagues came into the room. We used to do the Saturday meeting with all our producers and directors, and they came into the room and they said, we're brain dead. Because if you remember in those days, television didn't have a season. If you had a successful program, it happened every day, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. So by 1995, we pretty much had these 15 shows that were running weekly or daily or whatever. That means you were shooting every day, starting at 6 in the morning, leaving your house, coming back at 1 at night. So you didn't have a life. So my colleague said, we don't have any life. We have to stop doing this. And I was, okay, if nobody wants to do this,
Really?
let's go back to the arts. Not necessarily at that time realizing that we were notionally making money every hour and the hour, and the arts, there was no money. That took us 3 years of nearly going bankrupt and reducing from a very large company to being back to about 14 people, and our turnover dropping to less than a crore by 1999. In that period, again accidentally as opposed to by purpose, because we'd already started looking at what do you need to do in the arts to create value. What is it that it's about the arts where it's not seen as a value proposition? And I was very clear when we set up the company in 1989 that the reason we were setting it up as a company or a for profit as opposed to a not for profit or a whatever was to show that the arts can and does create wealth in the same way that maybe banking or manufacturing or whatever creates wealth. I was sure. I didn't have a roadmap of how that could be done, but I was sure this is what I wanted to prove or I wanted to showcase. And in that kind of telling of the story, it wasn't immediately evident in terms of how it would go. I had this notion that if you went to 5 different festivals with one group at the same time in the same region, maybe you amortized its costs, etc. It was just a theory, which then played through in South Africa for the first time in 2000, where we did Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, and so on and so forth, or in Australia, New Zealand, where we did Perth and Melbourne and Sydney and Alice Springs and Auckland and Wellington, etc. So again, if I said that, oh, this is not possible, how will we get there? Nothing would have happened, So again, accidental. I remember when I used to go off to travel and, we were in debt, we didn't have money, tickets, you still spend 40, 50,000 bucks traveling at the back of the bus to these places. My colleagues used to like, what is he thinking? What is he doing? He's spending the money of the company, without thinking because he's going off on a jaunt. But in my head, it was when I'm going someplace, I'm creating the networks of possibility. And when you create networks of possibility, invariably they connect. And those networks of possibility, I mean, now I'm speaking lyrically. If you look at the universe as being a web, as we've seen, like a worldwide, but you look at the universe as a web, and you look at connecting your energy or your antenna to the universe's energy, and you receive that energy, and you receive the support of the universe, that then connectivity makes it possible. And the minute you look at making something possible, it may not work out the way that you initially thought it would, or should, or could. It may find a different way. But 9 times out of 10, Sunil, I've always felt, even when I've challenged my own instinct, go left, I'll go right, when you're in a traffic jam. Even when I've challenged that 9 times out of 10, I've seen when you go with your instinct, the instinct of possibility, it opens up. And because it opens up, the universe celebrates you. You're saying, you're successful. I'm like, yeah, I mean, get on with it because, what is success? How do you measure success?
Yeah.
What is success? People may think
To my
that I'm successful.
well, you're having a ball doing what you love to do.
That's it. It's like the other day an artist said, you're so generous with your advice and time and stuff. I said, but how can I not be? I mean, what is the alternative? I don't see the alternative. I mean, I don't understand that there can be an alternative. Right. If you're in the arts, therefore you're empathetic, therefore you're open to possibilities, therefore you're creative, then there's no place for no. Of course, there's always ego, and you always have to fight with it. It's in the same way in Durga Puja, you're killing Mahisasur, you're fighting with your ego. So you're always, that's a constant battle. And that's not an easy.
Is that something that you're cognizant and aware of? Is that
very,
yeah?
Very much so. Very much so.
Because you just, nobody talks about a battle about their own ego with themselves, except for Gandhiji. But more and more, as I see, when as we've been speaking, it's very clear that you're a very conscious person. Conscious is, I'm not using, just conscious of everything versus being unconsciously doing stuff. Okay, because this will get me money. Oh, because this will get. I'm clear that I want to do something. That's the only word that comes to my mind.
So, Sunil, my magic mantra is I meditate for 5 minutes or 10 minutes every morning, which is where whatever message I receive or whatever I receive in my meditation, or if I'm being placed as opposed to something, for example, I will make sure that I send them love and light and forgiveness, and perhaps seek forgiveness for what I may have thought or done to them or for them. All of us are conscious beasts. That's what makes us different from the other animal kingdom. If we are conscious beasts, I think we have a responsibility to ourselves and our generations thereof to think, because that's the power we have. And to be able to think, you must have considered thought. To have considered thought, you must read or be aware. WhatsApp University doesn't necessarily tick the box of reading and being conscious. And if you're conscious and you're open to the possibilities, then that allows you to grow and it allows you to learn. To me, every day, every person who I meet or speak to or interact, for me, it's a learning. I am in the place of advantage. So therein, if you're perhaps to answer your question, if you're open to learning all the time, and if you're open to the possibility of miracles, you can see miracles every day, every hour, every minute unfolding in ways that leaves you with wonder.
Absolutely.
And the minute you have that sense of, wonder, awe and wonder, then that's
The rest of the world seems very plain after that.
yeah.
No, I really was going back, and I love what you said. I just want to take you to this thought that you mentioned about your struggle between ego and your I call it being. You can call it whatever. Yourself and your ego. And do you do you you're cognizant of that? You're recognizing that's what I meant by being conscious. Most of us are not really paying that much attention to that. Do you struggle with that quite a bit now, or you struggled with it before quite a bit more?
I struggle with it much more now. This fight between being aware of how your ego places you. The universe that gives me thoughts in meditation.
Brings it forth.
So in many ways, I'm the vessel. So if you then start saying, मैंने आपको अच्छा idea दिया, you're screwed. The beginning of the end.
True.
Whereas if you open yourself, and maybe at that point of time, you will stop receiving the ideas, or you'll stop being creative in the way that you can be creative. But you have to be. Ego is a
Big one.
Big one. I think it's for everyone. It's the biggest.
My biggest one is really, it used to be impatience. It still is, but the other is judgment. I have a judgment about everyone and everything constantly, and I have to constantly battle with myself to let go of that stupid thing and say, "Are you crazy?" And it's not only it's arrogant, but beyond that, you're always wrong. So you might let it go. What is your biggest one? The fact that you get adulated quite a bit.
I mean, adulation is, it to me, it makes no. I have pretty much an obsessive compulsive about cleanliness. So and perfection. So I can drive everybody around me totally crazy. So I've had to contain that, whether it's at home or in the office, saying that you can't get to perfection. So now leave it. So again, you have to be called out for that. And this whole obsession that I have about, picking up and making sure that, I mean, even when I'm driving, I'll stop somebody in a car, because they've littered the road, and I'll give them back the bottle. But, there's times and there's times. So you have to be very conscious of it.